North American markets in the green to end the week. Remember that the American markets have already stopped trading for the day. Yesterday was American Thanksgiving. They stopped early today. So it's just the TSX we are watching, and it looks like it's going to be another record close for the TSX. Let's go to Rebecca Teltscher. She's portfolio manager at Newhaven Asset Management, and she joins us to talk about what's been going on. Rebecca, we just spoke with our last guest about the most recent GDP numbers, but can I get your quick take on the growth?
Yeah, I mean, again, strong numbers, but in my opinion, this was a mathematical beat. Seems like exports were a lot lower. And so, if, exports minus imports, that impacts GDP. And so, lower imports does not make for a strong economy. I think there was a lot of underlying weakness that we saw, weakness in domestic demand. And, also we've seen consistently revisions of previous months lower. So last month, they revised. It was originally for, I believe, September. It was supposed to be positive 0.2%. That was revised down to negative, 0.3%. So again, these are preliminary numbers. They are subject to go down. We continue to see weakness in, whether large companies in Canada are starting to lay off employees, whether it's, the consumer being strapped, they're paying more on their housing, they're paying more for groceries as a result of inflation, paying more as a result to, tariff and trade uncertainty. It just seems, the overall sentiment in Canada with regards to the consumer is quite negative. That being said, the sentiment with the market is telling a completely different story.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how worried are you about the drop in domestic demand?
So not more worried than I was throughout the entire year. I mean, this is playing out pretty much as expected. I mean, Canadians being as indebted as they are, relative to, let's just say, in the U.S., having our 5-year fixed mortgages reset, unlike in the U.S. where you're granted a 30-year mortgage at the same rate for life. In Canada, we know that these resets are coming. We know that Canadians are more indebted. So it was just a matter of, it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when and how much the impact of greater interest rates were going to impact us. And then there was the second impact of higher prices, first through the pandemic with higher inflation. So we saw that first wave, and now, it looks like we're going into a second wave with, tariffs, counter tariffs, and just uncertainty regarding that as well. So we're seeing an uncertain consumer and an uncertain, business owners, and that combined is, resulting in a slower than expected economy.
Okay, so defense spending helped to boost GDP. You saw that. We had the pipeline announcement yesterday. Do you see bigger opportunities for Canadian energy with the AI build out?
Yeah, so it's interesting, Carney's announcement yesterday with regards to the pipelines. I mean, sure. So, directionally, I would say the announcement was positive. I mean, not to sound, cruel, but anything will be positive relative to the type of, build that we saw in the past 10 years. So, I mean, anything is directionally positive versus what we've experienced. That being said, I think the announcement was more symbolic or political in nature. The interesting thing is we have yet to see a comment from, Enbridge or TC Energy or Pembina or, Southbow, if there is an actual appetite to build. I mean, a lot of these companies have their hands full with other projects, and I'm not sure if they want to kind of get back into that. We saw what happened with TC Energy, 10 years ago when they tried to build Energy East, when they tried to build Keystone XL. That didn't work out for them. We saw what happened, with the government taking over Trans Mountain. I'm not sure the government has the appetite to take over another pipeline as well. Enbridge, is actually really busy doing brownfield work. Like they just announced 2 weeks ago an expansion on their main line. They could do a subsequent expansion again for an additional 250,000 barrels a day. Like I'm not sure they want to be handling a large greenfield project right now. So I think Carney's announcement is great in the sense that he's, signaling to the Alberta government that the federal government is not going to get in the way of a new build, but we have yet to see from the actual pipeline builders whether there is an appetite to take on a large export pipeline in Canada.
Okay, I've got about a minute left with you. I just want to quickly get to tech. What do you see as investors' ongoing concerns?
With tech, he said?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, tech, I mean, it continues to be really overvalued. And again, you're seeing, different investors saying different things. That's what makes a market. The interesting thing is, there's one of the women I work with, she's in her early 70s and she has the benefit of seeing, different markets throughout the years. And it's interesting being a younger investor. And I always look to, my older peers to see, they have that experience. And she said to me, the last time I've seen valuations this high was, between 2005 and 2007, and then again in the late 1990s to the year 2000. And so that's telling. So, are we in a bubble or not? It's still too early to say. It feels like it, but in terms of valuations, they just don't feel sustainable. And we know that a lot of those high valuations, particularly in the US, are driven by the technology sector. It seems like this AI fad.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're seeing investors being cautious as well. Is this a bubble? We saw really good earnings with Nvidia. Stock opened up 5% and then ended up down that day because there is this concern. And even if it isn't a bubble, if these stocks are overvalued, there still is a chance of a correction.
Okay.
Maybe, not a bubble popping, but at least valuations coming back to reality. Yeah. And there's a far way to go before we start seeing normal valuations in that sector.
Gotta leave it there, Rebecca. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much.